Reaction to Bannon's ouster across the political spectrum. Rahim Kassam, editor-in-chief of Breitbart London. Kurt Bardella is the former Breitbart News spokesman. And Howie Kurtz, our Fox News media analyst and the host of Media Buzz. Rahim, I have to start with you first because you have been exchanging words with Mr. Bannon today. When's the last time you spoke with him?
Just before I came on here.
And he said what?
He's pleased to be back. He loves Breitbart, and he loves what he had been doing there for so many years, and we all loved him for it as well, and I think the president loved him for it too, helping chart a path to victory for President Trump. And I know he's an avid viewer of this channel, so if he's watching, it doesn't have to be an either-or. Nobody believes that one person was necessarily behind that victory, but we know that Steve Bannon contributed to it in a large part. After the primaries, which President Trump did very well in on his own accord and with the team around him at the time, Steve Bannon came in and added something different, added a little bit of je ne sais quoi to the mix that perhaps wasn't there before, that Trump had lost when losing different staff on the transition from the campaign in the primaries to the campaign against Hillary Clinton.
Can you provide some clarity to these comments that he has since made to the Weekly Standard, saying the Trump presidency that we fought for and won is over? We still have a huge movement, and we will make something of this Trump presidency, but that presidency is over.
Yes. So we are playful at Breitbart, and my colleague Joel Pollack earlier tweeted #war, and what that means is it's a war on the people who are trying to stymie what the president was elected to do. I think Donald Trump has at his heart the importance of the message that he was bringing to his base, but there are people around him that don't share that worldview. There are people around him that actually don't have that populist, nationalist agenda at their hearts. And what we're saying in this, and what Steve Bannon is saying there, is that the people that have stymied this, they actually need to take a long, hard look at themselves and realize that they weren't the ones elected by the American people. Their agenda wasn't elected by the American people. It was President Trump's agenda that was elected by the American people, and Steve Bannon will work hard to make sure that happens.
And did he say, by the way, in the exchange with him today, why Trump removed him from the White House?
Well, look, there's been a back and forth with lots of different journalists reporting different things on this. I didn't ask Steve to clarify any of that. There was talk of him having resigned already 2 weeks ago, rather than it being a today situation. I don't think there's any animosity between the two, by the way, and I think you'll probably find that President Trump wants Steve Bannon's help in the future.
You say that, though, in the headlines that have since posted to Breitbart's front page. Kurt, I'll bring you in here. The headlines on Breitbart.com right now: Bannon out at White House. Get ready for Bannon the Barbarian. Trump Schwarzenegger 2.0. Okay, so what are we supposed to make of that?
Well, I think really, if anything, Steve probably feels very liberated right now, that he no longer has to operate under the confines and limitations of working in the White House. Steve isn't meant to serve at the pleasure of anybody. He's meant to serve at the pleasure of himself. He is, if anything, a dictatorial type figure. And he's not built to have to ask permission to do or say anything. Now he's outside of that. Now he can be the true self that he wants to be. And you're seeing how that's played out in the last few days with all these stories that he started doing interviews all of a sudden. I think he's going to be bombastic. I think that they're going to be helpful in a way of taking out all the people that Steve believes are the impediments to Trump successfully implementing his agenda. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, that means most of his staff in the White House, his family, and the Republican leadership in Congress.
Kurt, you have called Breitbart Bannon's weapon of choice. Who will be the target of his attacks?
Well, I think right away you'll see Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, Senator Jeff Flake, House Speaker Paul Ryan. It's been no secret at Breitbart that they have long existed to try to destroy the political establishment, and they have been very, very hard on the Republican leadership in Congress. And when you look at the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare, the failure to make any real grounds on tax reform, failure to even pay for the border wall, they're going to point all of the fingers, not at Donald Trump, but at the people around him, Congress and his advisors.
Howie, you have to think about Steve Bannon leaving that White House, knowing everything he knows that is happening inside those walls, and now returning the same day he leaves the White House and walking right back into Breitbart, even heading the evening editorial call. You have to be wondering what happens next.
Yeah, he didn't even take a 5-minute break, did he? Look, I know Steve Bannon, and you have to understand, he views this all as the same war. He never thought he was going to last more than a year there. He thought he would continue from the outside. He fought daily battles with what he views as the globalist faction in the White House. Jared Kushner, yes, Gary Cohn, H.R. McMaster, in defense of what he views as his vision of economic nationalism. Now, he will do the same at Breitbart without those restrictions. You notice Steve Bannon gave very few, virtually no interviews while he was in the White House. He didn't care what the media thought of him. He views us as the opposition party, and he will use his platform, his freedom, and the fact that he's now 100,000 times more famous to go after, yes, the GOP establishment in Congress, yes, the officials who work for President Trump, who he's on the wrong side. So he's not going to attack Donald Trump personally, but he is a disruptor who may make life difficult for the president if he thinks he's being led astray by some of his former colleagues.
Raheem, how will this Steve Bannon, how will he be different after now serving 7 months inside the White House, now running Breitbart again?
Well, look, I had a very similar experience to Steve. I did almost the same job for Nigel Farage in the UK Independence Party. Smaller scale, but went back into Breitbart after that job ended. And of course it changes you. Those experiences change you, and they make you realize how the process actually works. And by the way, there's not a lot I agree with Kurt Bardella on usually, but he's right. This isn't about Bannon versus Trump. The two are on the same page. This is about the people, as I say, who Steve sees as trying to stop the Trump agenda. And actually, the names that Kurt listed there, these are people who have historically been either rhinos or Democrats. And that's the White House right now. So what is Steve going to do, having had this experience in there? Well, now he knows who the enemies of the American people are.
Ben Shapiro, formerly with Breitbart News, Kurt says Bannon will return to Breitbart, smash Trump when he disagrees. That doesn't sound so friendly.
Right. Again, it's all fun and pleasant until there is a disagreement, and Trump is going to be now put in the middle, really, of a conflict between Bannon and Breitbart and his own advisors and the leaders in Congress. And where Trump falls on that, your guess is as good as mine, but it's going to be very interesting to see what type of tweets Donald Trump puts out, what type of outreach to Congress, if any, that he pursues to try to get his legislative agenda through. Certainly, we all know where Bannon's going to come from. It's going to be forceful, it's going to be direct, it's going to be in your face, smash mouth. That's Breitbart for you, and that's Steve Bannon. How they respond to that, we'll have to see. But Trump's going to have to make a calculated decision here to either continue to try to side, at least have the appearance of siding with Steve, or do a complete break from him. He's going to get pressure from his advisors to move away from Bannon now, to try to denounce some of the stuff that he's refused to step up on, to try to hit the reset button and use this moment to try to reset the table and actually get something done. It'll be curious to see whether he actually can do that or not.
I think we're all curious to see a lot of things, Howie, like what a Trump White House looks now like without a Steve Bannon chief strategist.
Right, Sandra. And beyond the palace intrigue, I mean, he could hire another chief strategist, for example. The thing the president has to have some concern about is not so much Bannon, who will obviously be a loud and sometimes contrary voice, but the people who Bannon appeals to and who Donald Trump appealed to with the economic populism that he ran on in the campaign. Now, the dark portrait of Bannon as some kind of Svengali who was manipulating Trump was always way off base, because basically it was the issues they agreed on, like aggressive trade policy, going after NAFTA, climate change, pulling out of Paris. That's where Bannon had the most influence, where Trump already agreed with him. Now we'll see how he does on issues where they don't agree, given that what Bannon views as the globalist people, but some would say more pragmatic, are now in ascendance in the new Trump White House.
All happening so fast on a Friday evening. Thanks to all of you for being here.
Thanks.